last time I talked to you, you were running NBC, and I was hoping you're going to star me in some TV show, and now you're running industrial internet. What is that?
Could have gotten you a good web video at that time.
I know. Didn't work. My dreams of stardom have just gone away because you moved to the industrial internet. What's up with that?
You can star in a video on an airline, maybe. That's what I can deliver for you. No. So I will work on it.
Looks like that's the other company, right? What Brown can do for you, that's UPS.
Yeah.
I don't do ads for it. But seriously, let's talk about GE and design. Like, what's wrong with this statement?
The two don't go together?
Yeah, no, they don't. I mean, you guys make turbines and engines for trains and planes. Like,
well, first of all, they're marvelous machines. They're brilliant, amazing machines that are designed in incredible ways. But increasingly, for our company's future, you mentioned the industrial internet. We're all about what happens when 50 billion machines come online. And how do you make sense of all of that data? And so design is growing in a big way in our company on two fronts. One is continue to embed design in how we make hardware. And for us, hardware means a jet engine. But increasingly, it's that user interface with data. And how do you make sense of it? What happens when people use data? What happens when machines communicate with one another? How do you make sense of it? So it's pretty exciting right now.
So how does GE think about design? Like, in a sense, like, that's just a very complex world you just described. Machine-to-machine communication, machine-to-human communication. And these are not machines as we know them in our pocket. These are machines which are kind of, big and bulky
and important?
Yeah.
It's, flying a plane.
You think my iPhone is not important?
It's very important.
Yeah.
But, so is driving a train, right?
Yeah.
So the way we think, I think there are a lot of new jobs of the future starting to come to life. We all talk about data scientists. This user interface expert is something that we think is very much going to be part of the future. It's about design, it's software, it's taking all the data and making it usable. So that if you are an engineer in a train or you are servicing a jet engine, you have the data you need to do the right things. So that's what it's all about. And think of as you said, all this complicated data, these very sophisticated pieces of equipment. You don't have time to stop and do your calculations the old-fashioned way. You've got to have the information right there. Maybe it's augmented reality. Maybe it's sensor data pointing exactly where you need. It's GPS, it's maps. All these things come together and make you much more efficient.
So how are you going to make that work? Because the people who are going to have access to the so-called data-enabled internet, industrial internet, are people who not typically worked with technology. They work in somewhat of a non-real-time environment. The software tools for industrial workers are, I guess, from the last century. And so, like, how do you guys think about designing for that specific demographic? Like, the train drivers, the engineers who maintain planes. Like, so what's the thinking behind it?
Well, a lot of it, the calculations have to be going on in the background. So you want a lot of things to happen without the person who's using it even know what's happening. So it has to be somewhat just in the background. And then it almost has to be predictive. And I think that's what you're seeing a lot of is very intuitive, starting to know this kind of behavior. Now I know you're going to need this kind of data. So there's a lot of data and analytics tied to how you behave. You do this, I know you're going to do this. You ask for this piece of data, I know you're going to need that. So it's, and then the user interface has to be really simple. And these can be very complicated things. For a long time in industrial history, we've thought that to be smart means you have to put everything in there. You have to be super smart, so you need, I think John Maida said it very well today when he talked about, I think I'm going to get this right, but his quote about more technology is better, but when you talk about using it, you want it to be simpler. That is such a rallying cry for the industrial internet. It's the right data when you need it, and only that data, because otherwise it's overwhelming.
So how are you guys doing that?
Well, I mean, a couple of different things we're doing. And one, we came out with, we have a technology stack that our team out in San Ramon has put together called Predix, which is our technology stack for the industrial, for our applications in the industrial internet. And we have something called the Predix Reader, which is basically kind of micro apps. Think of them as cards from Google Glass or Google Now. micro apps that tee up in a use case situation. They're on your tablet, maybe they're on Google Glass. I actually have some things I can show you later, but it starts to tee up the kind of data you need when you need it, and it understands what you're doing and tees it up. It even gets down to, I know this is a crowd that will appreciate this, but it even gets down to what does your font look like? I mean, there has to be a certain font that says this is a machine talking now. This is a person talking now. It has to be slightly different so you know who you're engaging with. So you have to really think through the whole process.
So how are you changing the company to think like that?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing we're doing is embedding software with our hardware. So for us, these brilliant machines that have sensors, and then bringing a lot of software programmers, data scientists in to take the data and analyze it. Great marketing people who understand where markets are going, what questions to ask, what are customers looking for. And designers are playing a bigger and bigger role, exactly as we've been talking, to say, okay, just because I have the data and somebody's asking me to do it, how do I make it easy to use? So I'd say those three things are coming together.
Right, like the question I'm actually trying to get, the point I'm getting to is, you know how Apple is, like Apple kind of takes a very, like a holistic approach to the hardware and the software and kind of craft an experience. You know, Jack this morning talked about how his team works on hardware, software, data, and creates this experience. And, you know, Tony at Nest said the same thing. You're essentially describing the same ideology. How do you guys do that, given that half your businesses are spread in Asia, some research labs are all over the place. You guys are pretty distributed. And this kind of collaboration, I mean, from what I've seen, works when people are working in close quarters.
Well, it happens in both ways. So we have centers in San Ramon. We have a design center where you're going to bring the hardware, the software, the customer together. But you also have to go to them. Increasingly, we've been setting up these innovation centers around the globe. So a great example is what we're doing in China for remote health applications. It's in Chengdu, China, very remote. Chengdu isn't that remote, but the Sichuan province is remote. And going out to rural doctors, bringing them in, living in hospitals. So I think a lot of it from the design perspective is the observation, the designer's empathy. How do you understand what that nurse needs and when she needs it? And you bring designers and engineers and marketers, and you live in that hospital. You go back, you prototype it, you come back, you say, try it out. So both things happen. You're in research labs, you're in manufacturing, and then you go out to the field. I was in Indonesia a couple months ago, and we're arming midwives with a certain kind of lightweight ultrasound so that they understand, a simple red light, green light. Is this mother in distress? Must she get to a hospital, or is she okay? So you get those things by getting into the market, and design plays a big role in bringing the connectivity and the hardware and the use case all in the same place.
So how much do you think things like smartphones have actually made your job easier or tougher to design these experiences?
Well, I think they've made them both, easier and tougher. They've made it easier because people have a framework. They understand what to design. It might have been hard to get someone in the rail industry to think more digitally until you have iPads and smartphones in the workplace. So it's a little bit easier. Now it's become a bit more the norm, so it's easier to get people to adapt, even if they're very technically savvy. So in that way, it's become easier. It's also become harder because there are a lot of applications now on people's devices, and you have to find a way to break through and find the ones that are meaningful. And I think the onus is on us to make ours even simpler. You take all this complication and make it even simpler so that you can compete with a lot of other things that are going on.
So talking about apps, if you're a young engineer or a young designer, do you want to work for GE or do you want to work for Tinder? I mean, I know where I would go.
Well, maybe I think you'd like to work for GE. I guess it depends on what your purpose is. But I think one of the reasons we've come to Silicon Valley in a big way is we think that you could perhaps do both, not at the same time, but maybe you work at Tinder and your next job is working for GE, or you worked at Zynga and your next job is working at GE. Because you take all those great consumer applications.
That's an easy one. Just put up a stand outside and they will just come.
I'm thinking a better example. That you can take all those great consumer capabilities of software programming, design, development, and now apply them to industry, where you have huge impact. I mean, we're talking about designing applications that save fuel, save time, save the environment in a jet engine. I mean, that's huge impact. So I think you can do both.
Okay.
Not at the same time. You can do both.
I can try both at
You
the
could.
same time.
You could probably use Tinder and work at GE.
How many people from GE actually are on Tinder?
We do.
Yeah,
Probably more than you think.
maybe we can do like a, like some data analysis.
Yeah, we should. We'll visualize the data. I'll just.
I suspect there will be very high number of people from GE. Like, a lot of middle-aged people from Silicon Valley are on Tinder. So, just say, good recruitment place. You could put ads there.
I'll let you
I can do that. I can come up with a product for you guys. But seriously, jokes aside, but it is a big challenge, though, right? Like attracting talent. You're trying to take your company almost 100+ years old, like big, boring industrial company, and become an internet company, right? How do you attract the talent to come and work? Like I'm being very serious. Like, how do you attract the young minds of today to come and work for your company so that we can build this industrial internet, which is important. I don't disagree with you. But like, how do you do that? Like, what will you do?
Well, we don't say we're big and boring. So I think that starts.
Okay, big.
Big, we got big.
Okay.
That means resource and
Okay,
capability.
we just come halfway on that.
I think we appeal to people who think big technology, big pieces of brilliant machines are really sexy. And there are a lot of people who get excited by how a train runs, how a plane runs. There's probably a lot of them here. There's a little boy inside of every one of us that gets excited about how a train works. And the idea to then apply software to the sensors in these pieces of equipment to create these incredible outcomes, that's pretty exciting for people.
I wish you ever rode a train in Bombay. You would not want to ride a train. Just saying.
Here's an offer. We can get you to Erie, Pennsylvania, and you can drive a train around the track in Erie,
That would be
Pennsylvania.
fun.
We can, you can take your camera and get good shots of it.
I think that should be your sell. It's like, come work for GE
And
and drive a train.
Driver of, pilotless planes, and we'll just keep going. You can fly planes.
There you go. I
You
mean,
can do a lot of simulations, though.
as you said, there's a little boy in all of us. So,
But I think it's creating the right environment, the resources to say this is important. We want people who get excited about software but apply it in these industries. The other thing I would say, we're doing a lot more to partner with startups. We've put our ventures team out here, and partly it's creating those opportunities to say, hey, this is a way to think about GE that you might not have thought about before, making it accessible, saying, hey, I bet you didn't know that. The other thing for a startup to partner with us is we've got, in many of these cases, we've already got paying customers. We've got the business model figured out. So this isn't the case where if you figure out something you don't know who's going to pay for it. We've got billions of dollars of backlog in services that we can say, you figure out this application, we have a customer ready to go.
right. So, I was joking, but I am a big believer in industrial internet. I've been the one, I've been writing about it for a while. So, one of the challenges of industrial internet and all the technology we are building today is this, we are not aware of like how this technology impacts the future employment situation, right? How much automation and all this digitization will impact people like the guys who repair planes and manage trains in the future. Because if the devices are smarter, you don't need many people to manage them. So you guys think about that? Like, how do you think about that?
We think about that a lot, and I know you know some of the work we've done. I think for us, the industrial internet is kind of three parts. It's these brilliant machines with all their sensors. It's all the data and analytics that make sense of it, so you can kind of predict the path before it happens, and then it's the outcome to people, the sort of better work. And you have to believe those three things go together. And so new kinds of jobs are going to come about. I mentioned the user interface experts. You're going to have digital mechanical engineers. You're going to be bringing these capabilities of understanding how to use a wrench and how to use software coding together. So there are going to be new kinds of jobs. There is going to be more productivity. Jobs are going to be made better. So the type of work that people do hopefully will change. And hopefully you're creating productivity for these industrial industries so that they can fuel future growth and hire more people. Now, all those things aren't going to happen at once. It's going to be an evolution, but that's what we believe we're working toward.
What's the role robotics will play in this industrial internet?
Robotics are an important part of it. I think robotics are interesting. If you look at something like one of our industrial internet offerings is hospital operations management. And it's putting sensors around, and it reminds people that they have to wash their hands when they're taking care of the patient. But you start to put robotics in place, and it frees nurses up to do the important things they need to do, so that they're not tracking down linen, they're not putting certain supplies, they're actually able to spend more time with the patients. That's what I mean about some of the raising the quality of jobs. And you can put those scenarios in kind of every situation. We've seen robotics on rail lines, where you send a robot out ahead of the train and it's sensing the track and sending signals back so that trip is more productive. So I think you're going to see robotics become the way that you get data, the way that certain tasks are performed that elevate the jobs for everyone else.
So from that perspective, do you guys think about starting like a new kind of a vocational school, digital vocational school?
We're thinking a lot about that on a couple levels. One, we've been investing a lot in new kinds of skills, certainly at the high school level in STEM and some of these areas. Data science is something we've been doing a lot with, trying not only to recruit but put these kind of programs in high schools. We've been doing a lot with challenges. We've had quite a bit of luck opening ourselves up to data scientists anywhere in the world, open source design engineers who can help us rethink 3D printing of new parts. So those are ways to access new talent that we didn't necessarily know about before.
So if you were to, rate where GE stands on like a scale of 1 to 10 in this transformation, the fact that they hired you means they're cool. That's it. We're going to go with that. But like seriously, like where do you, like if you were to, scorecard, like 1 to 10, where do you think you guys are in this digital makeover of GE?
If 1 to 10 in the digital makeover of GE, we're probably maybe halfway there. We've got a lot to do. I mean, for us, where this starts is having this embedded base of these great machines with all kinds of sensors. So it starts with us. Amazing technology. I mean, if you're a technologist, a jet engine is really amazing. You have to start there.
Right.
And then you can start to build the software capabilities, the data analytics on top of that. We're just in the early stages of that. Great progress. Our team led by Bill Rue down in Santa Rosa doing great work, but we're just starting. The work at the business level is just starting. Some of these jobs we talked about, just starting to map out what they are. Maybe even 50% optimistic. We've got a lot of work to do.
Right. So when did the makeover start? When did you guys start putting these sensors and started thinking about the industry?
Well, I'd say sensors have been put in technology over the past decade, but you start to ask the question, okay, what do we need to do with this data? And then you also hear your customers going, I need to optimize my assets better. I need to track where they are. I'm in a hospital. I can't have my nurse spending 20% of her time looking for things. Where is the CT, where is the ultrasound when I need it? So you start to hear your customers saying, wow, I had these challenges, and you start to think, I have the data. I could actually help them solve those problems. And so those things start to come together. For us, it's been in the past 3 years, where Jeff Immelt, our chairman and CEO, about 3 or 4 years ago, said, we've got to do this in a big way. We've got to step forward. We've got to really make it a core competency in the company. We've got to move to Silicon Valley in a big way. That's where the talent is. So that's really evolved over the past 2 to 3 years.
Right. Well, thankfully, he came up with the idea long before McKinsey issued their report.
The good thing about being in these industries is you have a good sense. You start to see something that's in aviation and in healthcare and in energy, and you say, wait a minute, there's something happening if people in these disparate industries are asking for the same thing. We're pretty good at connecting those trends.
But like you're the only big company I've seen which does this. Like a lot of the other big companies are still not thinking about, like connectedness. They're not thinking about sensors or, making devices which are internet enabled. So, I mean, it seems like the idea of what you guys have and the rest of the industrial, ecosystem is like there is a little bit of disconnect there, right?
Well, I think it's people are just waking up to what's possible. I mean, that's part of it. Again, we live in these markets. We work with our customers, so hopefully we have good early feelers about it. I can only speak to what we do.
So are you going to make like a connected fridge?
We have a connected wall oven that you can actually get now, so you can have it on pre-warm, preheat before you get home, or if you're particularly OCD like me and you want to make sure you turned it off, you can do that. And we've been doing some fun products with Quirky. We've been doing some branded products with Quirky that just hit the stores this week, so you can get a connected egg minder, a connected sensor, a connected power strip that you can operate with your smartphone.
What are those things?
I'll send you some.
I have no idea. Like, seriously.
Go to Home Depot this weekend and you can get some.
What is Home Depot? I go home and somebody comes up and fixes things. That's how the world works for me. Seriously. But, Tony Fidel this morning said that, not everything which should be connected should be connected, and like you need to rethink. I mean, I was serious for a minute. Like, what are you guys are going to do about your, washing machines and, I know you make ovens and microwaves and all those kind of things. How are you guys thinking about that part of your business? Can that be reinvented like Tony's trying to reinvent all these ignored, devices?
Yeah, I personally believe, again, as a trend watcher, I think we're at an interesting inflection point on connected devices in the home. It's happening. And at first you're going to see lightweight things just to get people comfortable with it. What does it mean? There are many reasons to have your appliances connected. One for the user, obviously, so you can check your oven. But also it gives you interesting opportunities for your business. You can start to do software upgrades. You don't have to send as many service people for the wrong things. You can very much target their time, make sure that when they're there fixing your dishwasher, they know what they need, they show up with the right part in advance. So those kinds of things are all coming pretty soon too.
From GE, I hope.
From GE.
Okay. Well, thank you, Beth, for
others too.
Well, I think my apartment, everything is from GE. I think part of the process. Anyway, thank you for coming and talking to us. Thank you for being a friend of our company.
Thank you very much.
And,
I think I had one video. Do you have time for me to show?
Yes.
So as I leave, I have one. Again, if you think this idea of creating proof of concepts, one of the things our design and digital guys did is to say, how could you think about industrial applications for Google Glass? And how do you start to think about connected, mobile, industrial internet? And so we just put together how would you apply that in a service shop for an aircraft engine. So it might be fun for people to see as I leave.
Cool. Let's see the video.
Okay, Glass. Recognize part. Okay, Glass. Engine status.
Okay, bud. Ready when you are.
Okay, Glass. Air boroscope. Move right. Move left.
Hey Jim,
Yeah.
can you slow down a little bit?
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, Glass. Delivery directions. Thanks, Mike. Okay, Glass. Fan blade delivery complete.